Accents. Is it too strong? That's the thing that keeps coming up. Having traveled the world and been in multiple different places, I have found that even with the thickest and strongest accents, it's the people that have the most clarity when they speak that you listen to, regardless of their accent. Christopher Walken has a very distinct accent, and everyone does impressions of him. But you can understand what he's saying. It's when the accent becomes too thick that people stop understanding what you're saying. And that's due to a lack of understanding phonetics of the language that they're speaking out of. And let's go with English for this sake. If I was to speak Russian, there are a whole set of sounds, phonetics, vocal placement that I would need to do in order for me to be able to effectively speak in a Russian dialect, language, and Russian accent while speaking their language. So it's no different when it comes to speaking English. And it's not even just people who don't have English as a first language that struggle with this. It also is for people who are native English speakers, but the region in which they're from has a very strong accent. For example, I never used to sound like this. I am from the West Midlands in the UK, which is renowned for its very strong accent, which is Birmingham, Black Country, Wolverhampton, Dudley, Kidderminster. I'm from Worcestershire. My accent has changed over the years because I have been in London, I've been working in theatre. I also learnt the RP accent, which we'll go into after this. So you can go to many places in England. You can drive 30 to 45 minutes and the accent will change. So in my county alone, we probably have 4 or 5 different accents, ranging from West Country, which is more farmer, sounding like that. And then we have the Worcester accent, which is bab sound, innit? Which adds different sounds to the ends of words, puts Z's on the end of buzz and wasp and ooh, Hume's goings down there, yeah, that's one. You go up a bit further into the northeast, northwest of the county, you've got the Black Country accent, which is like Dudley, Kidderminster. And then you go a bit further to the northwest and you have an accent that is more Birmingham, which is a little softer than the Black Country, but still in the same vein and still phonetically very much similar. And then if you come down into the south, into around where the Cotswolds start, you have a very posh accent, which would come under RP. Now, these accents are very common when they're used in films, television, and theatre, and there are a lot of famous people that have these accents too, that you understand what they're saying. And you can have people speaking in Spanish accents, French accents, in Russian accents, even some very thick Southern American accents as well. But the diction is clear, and they are articulate, and they are able to express their thoughts and their feelings through their words, and you can understand the words they're saying because they have a level of muscularity around how they say these things, and they're probably connected and supported here. Now, when you go into these more sort of places that have a very thick, strong rural accent, there's a little bit of environmental factor in there. There's, in the UK specifically, there's a class factor to it. So I'll go into that as well when this is why you need to work on your accent. So what we're coming across here is we have strong accent, unable to be understood. And this comes from your confidence to be able to speak the language in which you're speaking. And like I said, we're going with English now. So there are many people, like I said, that speak with a strong accent, but you understand what they're saying. There is a very famous, in the UK, comedian, actor, philanthropist called Lenny Henry. He is from Birmingham. He has a very strong Birmingham accent, but you understand what he's saying. Now, you'll know the Birmingham accent because you'll have probably watched Peaky Blinders. And if you didn't understand what they were saying in Peaky Blinders, that's because they weren't doing the accent correctly, or they were doing it too well, that it was too what's the word? They really went into it and they weren't doing the accent properly because that was too much in like the character. But you have to be able to understand what people are saying. So a good example of someone who uses voices, uses accents is Tom Hardy. And sometimes he will mumble his words, but he has a microphone on him when he's being recorded. And you can understand everything he's saying because of that, or you might not be able to. The people that you listen to with strong accents have a clear sound. They have clarity. They have a lexicon of words and language that they are comfortable in to be able to deliver what they want to be able to get across. So they don't give up who they are in order to express their thoughts and feelings through words. So a lot of people think that if you lose your accent, you're going to lose who you are. Now, that's not what we want to do. We want you to keep the very essence of who you are. We don't want to lose that completely. Otherwise, we lose a part of our authenticity. Every now and again, mine will still come out. There will be phonetics that I use that will show that I'm from where I'm from. So why do we need to work on our accent? Well, if you work on the phones, or you work in a face-to-face environment where you have to speak to an English-speaking audience, you're going to need to be understood. And if you're not understood, that's going to cost you money, relationships, and business, because people want to work with people that they are comfortable with and can trust. Now, it's not that accents are untrustworthy, though there are parts and regions in the world where if an accent is heard, there is a stereotype which is attached to it. And we can't escape it. As much as we want to be able to say no to that sort of thinking, it's going to be the case. I have a friend who is a multimillionaire. He's from Liverpool, and he was brought up wealthy. He went to a private school, but he still has the Scouse accent. And he's done very well for himself. And in Liverpool, he is well known, and his parents are well known for, being well off. But anywhere else in the country, in the UK, his accent is considered to be of low status, low class. So he does put it on a bit, puts a little bit of a slight hint of sounding a bit more RP when he does speak, but that's because of his schooling. So it's allowed him to get more higher paid jobs. Like I said, he's a multimillionaire, he sold his business. So having a more clear accent, more clear sound, and a more clear voice when you speak is going to give you access to better paid jobs, more English speaking roles, and make you more employable. Now, I don't particularly like this, but I've had to do this myself. And I know that in the black community, they talk about code switching and going between sounding black and then sounding white. Now, there is an essence of this when it comes to accents in the UK. Rural accents are considered lower class, and then the RP accent is considered higher class. So the accent that you see in the films, which is, oh, hello there, frightfully, yes, that British accent that people put on, that is considered the establishment. So we'll go into that after. So with that allows for social mobility. You are able to go between the different classes because of the way that you can use your voice and handle your voice. And if you are more articulate and are more clear and have more clarity when you speak, and your diction is clear and you're breathing properly, that's going to make people who are here probably listen to you a bit better than if you're going, oh God, how's it going? Oh yeah, sound, because there's already preconceived ideas behind those accents. If you know that you can communicate and be clear and have the right diction, and you understand how your voice works so that you can speak to the majority of people you want to reach in your audience who are speaking English, you will be more confident because you have a skill. And learning a skill makes your dopamine receptors very happy. So once you've acquired this skill, it's going to have massive effects on your life, on your lifestyle, who you can connect with. It's, say we're in Bali right now, you have the Germans hang out together and the Russians hang out together. But if the Russians and the Germans have to speak English and they want to speak a bit more clear, they can integrate with other people that speak English as well. So it helps for that mobility, it gives you confidence, and it improves your vocal muscularity because every language, every accent uses a set of different articulators. It uses the same articulators in the body, but it uses them in a different way. There are certain sounds that appear in different languages that don't usually appear in English. So it can develop parts of your system. For example, with the Australian accent, I've noticed that a lot of people who speak with an Australian accent have vocal problems around their throat and they sound very nasal. Now, the theory behind this is the fact that they're like back in the throat like this, and the sound is coming from their throat. And then because their throat and their tongue is tight, because they're swallowing their tongue, it means that the resonance is coming out of the nose. And that is how the Australian accent is usually sounding. And through, again, educational systems, applying a bit of RP and having a standardized accent for established schooling, the accent has softened in different varying parts of the country. But the stronger the accent in the rural parts shows that they're not working on their voice and muscularity of their voice. So you will improve your vocal muscularity by doing this. And then, because you're breathing properly and because you're connecting to the diaphragm and speaking from the very bottom up and breathing in properly, you will be more grounded. So all this helps with your social mobility. This helps with your confidence. This will help with this because you won't be worrying about speaking up here. You'll have grounded communication. Now, what does this mean? Establishment. Well, based on the English accents that you hear in films, television, radio, over the years, most actors who aren't speaking in American accent are speaking in an English accent. For example, James Bond. James Bond uses an RP accent. Even Sean Connery, a Scottishman, pretty much was putting on a slight version of RP. And the other James Bonds were definitely putting on an RP. Daniel Craig is using RP. What does it stand for? It stands for received pronunciation. One of your favorite YouTubers also speaks in an RP accent. Neuro Knowledge speaks in RP because it's a sign of education. So the RP accent was created over 100 years ago for the British television and broadcasting so that there was a standardized British accent across the whole of the nation. Like I said earlier on in the video, there are many accents in the UK, and the broadcasting had to span over all of them. So they created RP, which uses a certain set of phonetics and a certain way of speaking. Now, this accent crept in history into the establishment. So it crept into the royal family, in the hierarchy of lords and ladies, which then went into the private education, and then that's filtered down through the years. But because the establishment used it, there were people who wanted to sound more rich than they are, or they wanted to class switch. And that's why this RP accent has basically taken over the UK and why it's used in film and television, because a lot of people that go into films and a lot of people that get into theatre are from the established schools that use RP. That's why people in Made in Chelsea speak the way they do, because it's an educational, it's a class thing. They have a certain type of RP. It's a heightened version. And then you have heightened RP of the 1930s, 1940s, 1920s. Hey, hello there, they speak like this on the radio. And then you have the most famous at the moment, what's his name, Matt Berry. Here he's speaking in an English accent. Very much, that's a very bad impression, but he is using a very, very heightened RP when he's playing Laszlo in the Shadows television show that he's in. So this allows for social mobility, and this has happened for me in my life. There were jobs and calls I'd make, and people would listen to me because of my voice. Oh, you have a good voice. Oh, you sound good. You sound this way. And before my acting training, where I learnt this RP accent for 3 years at the Central School of Speech and Drama, I did sound very Midland and very West Midlands, very UK. I did sound very West Midlands when I was growing up. I sound more like this, and which meant that I was probably considered a little lower class than usual, because it's considered more lower class. Because most people who sound like that don't really. They don't go to the private schools where they're taught to speak and have elocution lessons. So that's kind of what I sounded like before. And RP, like I said, uses lots of different phonetics to other parts of the English language. For example, bath versus bath. Now, there are a few ways that people pronounce this word. There is bath, where the R is R. And then there's bath, and then there's bath, where they don't even pronounce the th. So the RP version of this would be bath. And you can heighten that, bath, or bath, bath. So you'll notice that the counties, there's London, and then the counties around London, they're called the Queen's counties, but now they're the King's counties. They will be considered RP as well. Or in the UK, they would be considered Southern. And as you go more east into Essex, it gets more Cockney, London, into Kent, where it also sounds very Essex and Cockney as well. Because they all moved out of London and out of the neighbouring counties to get into these parts of the country. Now, this is very specific to England. So if you are someone who is not native English speaking and you're listening right now, you're probably thinking, oh, this is a lot of information about the UK. So my point is, my accent is too strong. There are some very strong accents in the English speaking world. So why would you be worried about your accent if you're not from the English speaking world? It's a testament to yourself that you already know how to speak another language, because the majority of people who speak English as a first language don't speak another language. So give yourself credit for that. And I'll always drive that home, that people who speak another language outside of the one that they already speak originally is phenomenal. But if you want to reach an English-speaking audience, you have to be understood. And in order to be understood, you have to work on phonetics, how you sound, the sounds that come out of your mouth, how you shape them, how they come across. You also need to be able to have good articulation. You have to have good breath control. And you have to be able to be relaxed in speaking that. Because if you're there going like this, and you're going like this, and your accent starts to be shivery, and I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what that is, but that's the point, is you need to be relaxed when you speak. Your pronunciation will come from articulation and phonetics. Pronunciation is how you say things. So it's how you pronounce it. So again, it goes back to bath, 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 bath. You'll be grounded because you'll be breathing. And for the most part, I'm working with someone right now who is originally from Germany but grew up in South Africa. And his accent requires a lot of tension in the jaw to speak in Afrikaans and talk in the back of the throat like this. So we spent a lot of time undoing vocal tension, unnecessary vocal tension, around the diaphragm and around the jaw and the tongue root. Like we said in the Australian accent, there needs to be an undoing of tension around here in order for you to not swallow the tongue. So there is a whole amount of undoing of tension and bad habits which will help you be more clear, more precise when you speak, and more understood. So that pretty much clears it up. I don't want you to feel that your accent is too strong. Your accent is what makes you you. It's got an environmental factor. It's got your identity attached to it. I lost mine through being in different locations and the people I surrounded myself by. As my voice changed and my accent changed, the types of people I was around changed as well. Now, I know people who have accents here that have millions of pounds. I know people up here that have millions of pounds. Being able to go between the two, because if you are a Spanish speaker and you're speaking English and you want to speak to Spanish millionaires, you're going to be speaking to them in Spanish. But if you want to speak to millionaires or people who you need to do business with in English, they're going to want to be able to understand you. So we don't want to lose the essence of you. We don't want you to lose your authenticity. We just want you to have clear sound, clear diction, more self-awareness, and your pronunciation skills and your breathing skills so that you're able to close that deal, get that new set of friends, communicate more effectively, and be more grounded in yourself and be confident to speak the way you want to speak.